Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
They weren't able to flag that people had multiple properties in a simple purchase transaction.
BC Housing sues 13 people, claiming they lied to get below market price condos in Victoria.
Anyone that tries to use schemes to try to find ways to take affordable housing that's meant for people who are struggling will get caught.
Plus, police say a teenager could be criminally charged after allegedly driving his car into Burrard Inlet on purpose. And
the boom of the crane is laying flat against the tower.
Another crane incident in BC prompts a meeting between WorkSafe and industry experts.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. BC Housing is suing 13 people, accusing them of buying subsidized condos they did not qualify for. CBC News is also learning how exploitable the government's affordable housing system was when it was launched. Lindsay Duncombe now on what went wrong and the calls for accountability.
What happened at this condo building in Victoria is raising questions about the BC government's ability to live up to affordable housing promises.
It's a total mess.
The province provided a $53 million low-interest loan to the developer of Vivid condominiums. The goal? Those savings would be passed on to qualified buyers like Brady Quate. Household income? Less than $150,000. Doesn't own any other properties. He promised to live in his one-bedroom condo for at least 2 years, no rentals. He bought the place for just over $308,000. That's below market.
There was a sense of needing to be honest and truthful that I did fully meet those requirements. And there was no part of me that was looking to game the system.
But BC Housing says some of his neighbors were. It launched 13 lawsuits against buyers it alleges didn't even move in. Among them, a retiree who owns a $1.7 million home, a couple owning 5 properties worth more than $3.2 million, another owning 2 condominiums, and a company that owns or operates 9 other properties.
They weren't able to flag that people had multiple properties in a simple purchase transaction where a simple land title search connected to these people's names would have discovered that.
BC Housing is also suing this real estate agent who it says bought a unit for herself, didn't live in it, and made $53,000 in commission selling to others, nearly all of whom the government now says shouldn't have qualified. She denies the allegations and didn't return calls from CBC. BC Housing says the buyers were vetted by the developer and a third party, then audited by government.
It's important to note that anyone that tries to use schemes to try to find ways to take affordable housing that's meant for people who are struggling will get caught, and in this case they were.
BC Housing is seeking punitive damages from the defendants as a deterrent. The developer, Chard Developments, would not comment while the cases are before the courts. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Jason Proctor broke this story and he joins us. Jason, how did this happen?
Well, Dan, you know, a big question people have been asking is about, well, where is the due diligence here? BC Housing told me today that it was up to the developer to screen buyers at the time of purchase at Vivid, and that they appointed a third party to monitor that compliance and to make sure that people lived up to the terms of this covenant, which these 13 people are accused of violating when they bought into the unit through the Affordable Home Ownership Program.
So there are 13 civil lawsuits. What about criminal charges? They aren't usually laid in these situations, right?
You know, that's an interesting question. It is one I always get asked when we do these stories, because, you know, you hear about these instances of people lying and you never hear any kind of consequence along those lines. I actually got a call today from the General Counsel for the Notaries Public Society of BC. Those are the people you might go to when you're taking out a mortgage, have to sign a declaration in front of. He pointed out to me that lying on a statutory declaration is actually a criminal offense under the criminal code. And he said, you know, maybe it's time in one of these kind of cases where somebody actually gets punished as a way of sending a message to people that, you know, in this kind of thing, your word is your bond.
And you've also learned BC's real estate regulator has gotten some complaints about this. What's there?
Yeah, I called the BC Financial Services Authority. They oversee real estate agents in this province. They told me that they are now aware of allegations against a real estate agent here who was sued. She allegedly got $53,000 in commissions associated with the sale of many of the purchases which we've seen in these lawsuits. And they told me that they're going to basically look and see whether or not there are any potential violations of the Real Estate Act here.
And we'll see what comes after that. Jason Proctor, thanks very much.
Thank you.
There is more outrage and questions over the alleged assault of a youth in Colona by a repeat sex offender. He was released into the community with no prior warning from police. As Brady Strachan tells us, a Colona MLA is now demanding answers.
Colona Mission MLA Renee Merrifield didn't hold back as she spoke about the shocking details at question period. A repeat sex offender released in Colona with no warning from police and then allowed to attend lessons at an equestrian school when youth were present.
While children were arriving for after-school lessons, this convicted child molester's supervisor sat in the parking lot in his vehicle for 2.5 hours. The result was an 11-year-old girl being cornered and sexually assaulted in the bathroom by this predator.
Those details are not proven in court or confirmed by the RCMP, but 29-year-old Taylor Dewick is charged with invitation to sexual touching and sexual interference along with breach of probation. Dewick has a lengthy criminal history. A 2022 parole board hearing document shows that he's twice been sentenced to federal prison for sex crimes and is the subject of multiple warnings in the past by police. Now, Dewick was released into Colona in 2023 after he served his latest prison sentence, but there was no warning by police to the public at the time. The public only finding out about Dewick's presence in the community when they learned last week of his arrest for the allegations at the equestrian school.
Our community is traumatized. That 11-year-old is traumatized. With Taylor Dewick's bail hearing tomorrow, parents and my entire community are traumatized and fearful that he's going to come back if he's released.
Questions remain why Dewick was released in Colona with no public warning by police and how he ended up at the equestrian school, allegedly unsupervised when minors were present. Merrifield is demanding accountability by the NDP. Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth ordered an investigation into the circumstances last week, and today he reiterated those details.
To get to the bottom, to find out exactly what happened. Was it a systemic failure or was it a failure of an individual? That work is underway to ensure that this never happens again.
Colona RCMP have said they sought a public warning when Dewick was released in Colona last year, but said the threshold was not met and directed our questions to BC Corrections. BC Corrections has not responded to repeat questions by CBC News about Dewick's release or the circumstances of his supervision. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Colona.
The BC government is changing 3 laws in a push to reduce poverty in the province. It includes the Poverty Reduction Strategy Act, the Employment and Assistance Act, and the Employment and Assistance for Persons with Disabilities Act. The changes are expected to lower overall poverty by 60% over the next decade, with a focus on child and senior poverty. The new provisions are also expected to help people on income and disability assistance keep jobs and have better access to supports.
So the program helped me out a lot, especially the workers that helped me overcome my struggles.
I'm just recently become a senior and found out the difficulties in the housing market. I wasn't ready for that.
The government's complete poverty reduction strategy is expected next month.
Thank you all for coming out.
A teenager could be criminally charged after allegedly driving his car into Burrard Inlet on purpose. Police claim he was offered money to do just that and stream it live online. Michelle Gassoub brings us the video and the fallout.
Video streamed live on Monday night shows a 19-year-old getting into his car and driving straight into the waters off of Rocky Point boat launch. No! On the top left of the screen, a popular streamer who police say offered the teen an unknown sum of money for the stunt eggs him on.
Bro.
Just moments later, police arrived on the scene, arresting the driver.
This incident, is very reckless, very careless. It's really concerning as well that someone would go to these lengths to pull off some sort of social media stunt.
The car wasn't pulled out of the inlet until this morning. The driver now faces potential charges of mischief and reckless driving. But whether the streamer who allegedly encouraged the act could also face charges in Canada is more complicated.
It is a criminal offense to aid and abet a criminal offense. In Canada, the complexity here is the fact that we are dealing with someone who actually does not live in Canada or anywhere locally.
The U.S.-based streamer Aiden Ross didn't respond to a CBC News request for an interview. Police say the car remained in the inlet for up to 12 hours and could have damaged the surrounding environment. The boat launch where it happened was closed to the public until Tuesday afternoon.
Social media is certainly a catalyst for these types of incidents, unfortunately, and it is really concerning that someone would think that this is okay and that this is their opportunity for 5 minutes of fame, so to speak.
The teen driver could now be on the hook for the tow fees and the environmental cleanup, while the car is a write-off. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Yet another crane incident in BC has prompted WorkSafe to meet with industry experts to improve safety. As Courtney Dixon explains, there have now been 4 crane incidents since the start of this year alone, including one that killed a worker.
Today, WorkSafe BC is meeting with employers and the union that represents crane operators in BC to talk about crane safety regulations. This comes after yet another crane-related workplace incident this year. Yesterday, a crane at a worksite in East Vancouver collapsed. Josh Towsley is a spokesperson for the union that represents crane operators.
The boom of the crane is laying flat against the tower.
Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the union is worried about safety protocols and regulations for cranes. In particular, it wants to see more oversight when it comes to provisional licenses.
We know that because there's been a lack of training in the tower crane world, that people have been allowed many more than what the regulations say they should be allowed.
Another meeting with industry stakeholders will be held later this month. Courtney Dixon, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver City Council has agreed to return a mushroom dispensary's business license, allowing it to sell that product again. The city inspector had suspended Dana Larson's Magic Mushroom Dispensary license in May, claiming Larson had misrepresented what was being sold there. At the time, Larson argued the business was helping those with certain medical conditions or dependence on opioids, something he says the new license will allow him to get back to.
A lot of people are using mushrooms and other psychedelics for issues like PTSD, depression, anxiety, drug addiction, and drug use issues. Others are simply seeking to go camping or have a pleasant time and use this as a substitute for alcohol or other substances. But there's definitely a lot of medical use like that.
Larson claims what's happening with hallucinogenic mushroom dispensaries now has a strong parallel with cannabis dispensaries in 2015, when the city was allowing some of them to operate under specific guidelines. Well, the Squamish chief parking lot in Squamish is going to soon get a bit bigger. The project has been listed on BC Bid. The province plans to widen the road between the upper and lower parking lots, creating another 38 spaces. This will help ease some congestion at the park, which is very popular with hikers, climbers, and campers. The expansion is expected to be finished by the middle of April. With a quick to plan, build, and get people out of the cold, modular buildings can be a logical solution for a variety of needs, and we're seeing more of them all over the province. Some of them now are homemade. We took a tour of a factory in Barrier to find out why it's an expanding business.
I'm Philip Gruner. I'm the CEO of Paradigm. We're just outside of Barrier here in Lewis Creek. From a location standpoint, first of all, fairly well situated because it allows us to bring homes up into the BC North from here, but also access to the coast and into the Okanagan. We're standing right now in our framing line, and the operator works with the help of this screen here to figure out what the components are that go into the frame. So it's kind of like if you think about Lego on steroids. The majority of the building envelope gets built here in the factory. This is a sidewall of one of the triplexes that's going to West Bank First Nation. As you can see, it's pretty much a fully finished wall with the siding put into it, the windows put in, the flashing. This wall basically gets set on site, and then the other exterior walls get put together or craned together on the pre-prepared foundation. So our finished buildings over here are built with a lot of fire smart materials. So not only are homes environmentally friendly, sustainable, huge amount of what we do is energy efficiency for when you actually live in a place, but also fire smart. This is a product that goes on the exterior of the wall. It doesn't burn, it chars. And it's a tongue and groove system, so it just kind of slips into each other, just really making sure that we have a good, solid exterior envelope of every building. The new factory that's going to go just across the way here, it'll be a 30,000 square foot building, which will house a substantial warehouse for a lot of the products, then a large manufacturing space for closed wall or pre-manufactured finished home kits. And then we're at the front of the building, we'll have our corporate head office located right here in Lewis Creek. We're hoping that this new facility will create another potentially 30 to 40 new jobs in the community here. The majority of our staff in this factory are local residents to Barrier, McClure, or surrounding areas, and we're pretty proud of that fact.
Big news for some rural communities in BC. The federal and provincial governments say new funding is coming to support high-speed internet in their areas. The CBC's Leanne Young spoke with our reporter Catherine Marlowe about where those projects are happening.
Catherine, nice to see you. So tell us more. What are these projects?
They're all over the province. If I were to list them all for you, we would run out of time, but basically 14 projects. In some cases, this is in one particular community. In other cases, it's sort of a collection of communities. For example, a number of First Nations, including the Blueberry First Nation and the Squamish in the interior. But they're sort of all over the place, as I mentioned, and this was part of a commitment from the federal government a few years ago to get everyone in Canada connected. So they basically put out the call for applicants to run the projects, and this time they're announcing these 14. Now, Goody Hutchings is the Federal Minister of Rural Economic Development. She is the person who made this announcement yesterday. She was here on Vancouver Island in Chemainus. And she said, of course, that this isn't just about being able to watch Netflix or to have some fun or even to communicate with family and friends. It's about being able to work from home. It's about being able to learn from home. It's about being able to run a business in a small community. And most important, it's about safety. And here's part of what the minister told me.
It's so important to be connected, especially in times of emergency. And you folks know better than that. What you've gone through the last few years with forest fires. Look, I'm from down east, from Atlantic Canada, what we went through with a hurricane. People need to know, especially for peace of mind and for the first responders on the ground, that you have connection in times of need.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's not just for watching Netflix or we wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for high-speed internet that I can talk to you this morning,
Everything.
Right? Yeah, that's really, really important. So just how many communities around BC right now don't have access to even some of these new projects that are coming?
So I don't have a list of communities, but I can give you a percentage. So basically, the federal government has a goal to have all of Canada connected by 2030. For BC right now, the minister said we're at 95%. By the end of this year, when these 14 projects get put into place, we'll be at 97%. So there still will be communities without power or without high-speed internet. And, Leanne, I had a quick conversation with someone on Sointula, which is a small community on a small island off of North Vancouver Island yesterday. When I called her, she hadn't heard the news news yet? And her response was, yippee! So for those communities that don't have it, they are waiting and really hoping it comes soon.
I can't imagine what it's like. I feel like when we're in some of the larger communities, we kind of take the high-speed internet for granted.
Totally.
But yeah, for sure. Okay, so glad to hear this is on the way. Thanks for that report. Our Catherine Marlowe over in Victoria.
It appears last summer's wildfires in BC in the interior did more than destroy property and forests. They may have also boosted the population of feral pigs. The Columbia Shuswap Invasive Species Council is asking anyone who sees these animals to report in the wild to report them. Officials say last summer's wildfires destroyed fencing in the region, letting farm pigs escape. Well, BC doesn't have severe problems with feral pigs for now. In the prairie provinces, they're often very aggressive, destructive to crops, and they spread disease. We don't want them here, Darius Badavi. They're no good.
We definitely don't. A big problem across really the Americas and Australia, but here in Canada, in the prairies, they are an especially big problem, and they've been called super pigs because they combine the hardiness and the survivability of a wild boar with the breeding ability of a domestic pig, which makes them not just really hard to get rid of, but also populations can explode very quickly.
Prolific.
So let's keep them in the prairies and hopefully get rid of them altogether sometime soon. One of the worst invasive species. But Dan, you know what's not the worst is the weather that we're having. Because it's very sunny. Segue, yes. It's been sunny, it's been cold, but very calm for the last few hours. All the chaos that we were seeing yesterday across the South Island and last night has cleared up. So no more hailstorms, no more surprise flurries or freezing rain. And we're pretty calm now for tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, there is a chance that we'll see some more activity for the South Island. Tonight, a very small chance, only showing up in a couple of the models, that comes to Vancouver as well. But for the most part, looking fairly calm. It's not until Thursday that we see this next system roll down the coast from the north coast and the northwest, and then roll down, hit the island, and then continue to spread from late Thursday into Friday to the rest of the south coast. So not too much on the way for tomorrow, but Thursday we start to see a little bit more activity. Temperatures really just staying cold for now, and that's really going to be the big story tomorrow. So a little bit of sun, a little bit of calm, but also wear your gloves.
Good advice. Thanks, Darius. We'll talk later.
Thank you.
The Oscars are this weekend, but ahead of the glitz and the glamour, the Academy also gives out scientific and technical awards. An engineer from North Vancouver and his team won for their invention of a state-of-the-art laser projection for the big screen. The winner spoke with the Early Edition's Stephen Quinn about it.
From a pure technical point of view, the black level is a lot better, so you get very crisp contrast, you get brighter highlights, and you get more vivid colors, a brighter color gamut. But it's maybe more interesting to kind of see what it does to the storytelling. It immerses you more in the story. So basically, for me, it always feels like you're more within the story of the movie that's actually going on.
Congrats to him. The Academy Awards are airing this Sunday, March 10th at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. BC's 2024 budget addressed housing in several ways. After the break, though, we'll take a close look at some of those goals and what the opposition is proposing on the other side of the legislature. Stick around. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thank you for being here. A dog is being called a hero after a peaceful walk along the PEI shoreline turned dangerous for one man late last month. Andrew Lorimer often walks his 2 chocolate labs along Shipyard Road, but when one ventured out onto thin ice, Lorimer suddenly found himself in danger too.
So this is Marley, but we call him Mars. And this is Roscoe, his little brother. Mars is 8 and Roscoe's 2. Well, we go out for our usual lunchtime walk and down in the Shipyard Bay. And this particular day, Roscoe decided to go and investigate the ducks and say hello to the ducks. And I knew at the back of my mind that he was going towards thin ice. And of course, as he went to the thin ice, poof, right through, and he was in the water. And thought, this dog's now in trouble, he's starting to yelp, he's starting to potentially drown, he's in cold water, I'm going to need to do something to save this dog. So I took off across the ice, slipped and slid. Basically, as I went to grab the scruff of the neck, lying flat, the momentum of me pulling, I then went headfirst through the ice into the water. I've now got the scar on my forehead, as you can see. It takes your breath away, how cold it is. Dog splashing around, blood everywhere, fingers all cut, luckily, I was just tippy-toeing the bottom of the sea, but if it had been deeper, with rubber boots on that were full of water, I might have been in another difficult position. Roscoe was there, so I took him and threw him out. And of course he was safe, Marley was safe, and then I'm in trouble because every time I went to the edge of the ice to try and get out, it would just snap off and break off and I would go back into the water. And I was starting to really panic. And then, out of the corner of my eye, Marley, my older dog, he decided to come across the ice and I couldn't really stop him because I was in the water. And he stopped basically within an arm's length of me. So I just grabbed his two front legs. And that was enough for me to ledger myself to actually pull myself out like a seal onto the ice, bleeding and fingers all cut and everything. So this dog saved my life, basically. In hindsight, I maybe shouldn't have gone onto the ice. So that would be the learning for anybody at this time of year onwards where ice can be melting, just to be aware of dangers when you're taking dogs down. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to reward them for that, but it's incredible. Well done, Marley.
Housing has been top of mind since the 2024 BC provincial budget was unveiled last month for both the NDP government and BC United opposition. Here to get into what both parties are proposing is Hassan Juma. He is a realtor with Oakwyn Realty, and we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, the province's budget largely prioritized housing, building affordable housing. Your line of work is in helping people buy homes. What do you think of the support for first-time home buyers that you saw?
Yeah, so I think in the proposed budget, the change to the property transfer tax exemption is critical. It's big. It's positive.
Remind us what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So up until this point, the purchase price or the market value of a home needed to be a maximum of $500,000 to be able to get a property transfer tax exemption for a first-time buyer. Needless to say, $500,000 doesn't get you very far in this market.
No.
So ultimately, the change is now that market value moves to $835,000, much more in line with market values of properties. Average condo price across Metro Vancouver around $770,000. So this is going to open the door to many more first-time home buyers. They will receive a property transfer tax exemption up to $8,000, and that's $8,000 that can go towards moving costs and all the other closing costs associated. So I think very positive for first-time buyers.
And now, on the other side, BC United's Fix Housing Plan includes this rent-to-own initiative where prospective homeowners would contribute, I think, 3 years of rental payments toward a down payment on the same home. What do you think of that plan?
I think it's excellent. I think the idea behind it, it's not new. It's been tried before in the market. The hindrance has always been the cost to the developer to offer this sort of a program. So what I think is good about this program is BC United wants to cover the carrying costs of the developer to allow this program to work. And I think the way they're looking at it is if they can do 15% of all units coming to market under this program, it's going to help a lot of first-time buyers. I will say the biggest struggle is that down payment. The qualification is tough, but as interest rates come down, we have policies we can adjust that can help people with qualification, but it's always the down payment. So the program is great. Can it work financially is the question. And then how are they going to allocate these units? I consider this to be the golden ticket in real estate. If you know that opportunity exists to have this sort of a program, everyone's going to line up for it. How will they allocate the units? That's going to be a big question as well.
And with both of these proposals, is it going to benefit people across BC, or where do you see the focus being mostly?
Yeah, so I think when we look at the first-time home buyer incentive, I think other areas of BC where the real estate values were lower, I think there were more people that fell under that exemption naturally. So I think the big help for first-time buyers is Metro Vancouver, is Fraser Valley. I think with the rent-to-own proposal, because that will be for each new development across BC, that's going to help everyone in the province. And I think, again, it's one of those incentives. I think that's kind of one of the most promising things to hear out of the BC United platform.
All right, Hassan Juma, we appreciate your time with Oakland Realty. Thanks again for coming in.
Yeah, Dan, thanks for having me.
A closely watched battle with some predictable results. Super Tuesday marks the caucus votes in 15 U.S. states for both Democratic and Republican presidential nominations. We take you stateside after this.
Hi, my name is Anna McConnell. I am a student here at the University of Manitoba, and I throw shot put for the track and field team. Shot put is a throwing event. You have a heavy ball, basically, and the goal is just to throw it as far as you can. I started throwing in grade 10 in high school, about 8 years ago, I think. Honestly, I didn't start off loving it. It's just something I kind of did, and it honestly just kind of grew on me. I never thought I was going to do university track. Coming out of high school, I played a lot of basketball, I played hockey, ringette, and I did throw a little bit of shot put and discus in high school, and then one of the throwing coaches for the university kind of approached me and was like, hey, would you be interested maybe in trying shot put at the university, like continuing? And I was like, sure, why not? And honestly, I was not very good at it when I started. Throughout my university career, kind of the better I got, the more I loved it. It's an individual sport, it's an individual event, so kind of whatever you put into it is what you're gonna get. I just stuck with it, kept going, trained hard, and I got better at it. About 3 or 4 days leading up to the competition, every day, just like mentally picturing what the competition is going to look like, and then what my throw is going to look like. I wipe my shoes down as soon as I get into the circle. I want clean base. I'm going to walk to the back of the circle, take a deep breath. I'm going to kind of get ready, bend my knees a little bit, thinking about turning and pushing my left hip up and forward at the same time. Then I can throw with my upper body and kind of push with my arm to fully finish. So I do like a little spin and then land. And then recover. I have won youth sports the last 2 years, and I won Can West, our like division conference, this year and then the last 2 years. My season's best is 14.96. So for shot put, the distance I think is 13.33 meters. So if you throw over that, then you automatically get to come to nationals. To be able to win a 3rd national championship at home in my last year would just be unbelievable. Like, I have no words for it, honestly. I think it would be the perfect way to end off my throwing career at the university. Yeah, it would be amazing.
With March break travel just around the corner for many Canadians, health officials across this country are bracing for a rise in measles. BC has one confirmed case so far, as we told you last night, and reported cases so far this year are already higher than all of 2023. The CBC's Peter Cowan has more.
Just because there aren't any cases right now in Atlantic Canada doesn't mean health officials aren't worried, and what they're asking people to do is check their vaccination status. For people who were born before 1970, it's less of a concern because they were likely exposed to measles as a child. Then the measles vaccine was introduced, but for a long period of time, only one dose was given. Public health officials now say 2 doses is ideal to ensure long-lasting protection. So the advice from one infectious disease doctor is if you've only had 1 dose, it might be good to get another.
If they've had 1 dose of a measles vaccine, and for example, you're traveling abroad, you might be exposed to measles because you're in an area of higher transmission, it's a very good idea to get that 2nd dose of a measles vaccine.
March is a busy travel time for a lot of areas, especially as children get March break or into Easter break, and so the advice is that people should be getting that protection before they travel. Some areas like Europe and Florida are seeing outbreaks of measles, and the concern is that children and adults could bring that disease back to Canada. In fact, we're seeing this now in a number of provinces. The biggest concern is Quebec, where they're seeing the most cases in Canada, and some of the cases they're seeing aren't directly linked to travel, which is a concern. They're targeting their vaccination campaign at younger children because some vaccination rates in schools can be as low as 30%.
Schools and kindergartens or daycare centers are places that are propice to propagation. So if we first, they are the places, if we want to increase our coverage, vaccine coverage, is the place where we have to focus on and priority. And of course, we know that those are the places that we will have more risk of transmission or having big outbreaks.
British Columbia is the most recent province. They announced their first case yesterday. The other provinces that have seen cases are Ontario and Saskatchewan. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
CBC News has learned a survivor of the federal Indian day school system is taking her case to Canada's highest court. As Olivia Stefanovic explains, she's fighting to amend her claim for compensation from Ottawa's multi-billion-dollar settlement deal.
I was also ashamed to share my abuse and my trauma.
Margaret Swan reads one among hundreds of complaints she's gathered against a multi-billion-dollar settlement agreement she helped create and then quickly came to question.
I thought I would fall apart.
Not so long ago, Swan became a lead plaintiff in a class action against Ottawa for harms caused at federal Indian day schools, institutions like residential schools, except children went home at night.
Students who attended these schools were subject to sexual, physical, and psychological abuse.
In 2019, a deal was cemented between day school survivors and the federal government. The cost was initially pegged at just over $1 billion, but CBC News has learned it's now close to $6 billion. Whatever the cost, the government says it wanted to do one thing better.
What we tried to do was simplify the process here in order that survivors had easier access to the settlement monies without necessarily having to go through the trauma that they had to.
They designed a claim process to avoid re-traumatizing survivors. All they had to do was fill out a form, and that's when problems began. It asked a lot, and for some, too much.
Felt traumatized again, victimized again.
You have reached Gelling WLG, class counsel.
And when victims reached out for help,
the period to file a claim has now closed.
They felt no one was there.
I felt compelled to just sign it, and I guess I suffered the consequences. That's the Waterhen School.
Waldron hired her own lawyers to update her claim. She was denied. Now CBC News has learned they're asking Canada's highest court to intervene.
These aren't insurance claims. These are claims dealing with real people who were victims of abuse as children.
Both Deloitte and Gowling declined CBC's requests for interviews. When asked to respond over email to concerns about the agreement, a spokesperson said the firms can't comment on what they called third-party views. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
Prairie provinces are experiencing a multi-year drought because of warming temperatures and low rainfall. As Julia Wong reports, it's forcing ranchers to make some very tough decisions about their livestock.
Good girl. Good girl.
Bart Guillon does not want to say goodbye to more of his beloved livestock.
It's okay, Bailey. It's okay.
But it's the new reality for the Central Alberta rancher because of the ongoing drought. The last couple years, Guillon has already sold off 50 cows, 30 bison, and 60 elk. With little moisture in the ground, feed has been hard to grow, and water sources are drying up.
My creek, which normally flows 6 feet wide all year, the last 2 years, it has dried right up in the springtime. I'm talking like dust.
And Guillon is not alone. This auctioneer says it's been a busy year and a half.
If they didn't get more grass or buy more land, everybody as a whole has pared back their herd for sure. A percentage. Some have got right out of it.
Those here are watching the prices and watching the weather, like Shane Bucksaw, who's been farming for 40 years.
It's a tough game. You know, you have to be very optimistic and hope we do get the moisture and everything, and hopefully it helps us.
Despite what meets the eye, the prairies are in the grips of a multi-year drought. This scientist says the drought became really severe last year when warmer than normal temperatures melted snowpacks early and hot temperatures persisted through the summer. Even recent heavy snowfall may not be enough.
What did we get out of the latest storm?
So he's keeping a close eye on conditions.
Soils and reservoirs and groundwater are so dry in the mountains that we would need above normal snowpacks to break the drought.
So anything with color on them shows dry or wet conditions.
Droughts are becoming more common with the changing climate, says this specialist, and they build up over time.
I don't think we're going to recover this spring. What we can hope for this spring is that we start that recovery process. We start to see some moisture build up in their soils to allow crops to go in the ground.
Hadwin says farmers will have to adapt, whether it's by trapping snow or using different seed varieties that rely on less water.
This is one of the number of tanks that we've set up.
It's something Guillon is already doing. He's installed mitigation efforts to collect as much water as possible.
Most farmers are pretty resilient. They usually figure out a way to get over the hurdles and find a way to make it work.
Work that could use some help from Mother Nature. Julia Wong, CBC News, Brazeau County, Alberta.
Turning now to a huge night in the race for the White House as millions of Americans vote on what's known as Super Tuesday. With the largest number of states holding primaries or caucuses, Super Tuesday is the busiest single date in the entire presidential nomination process. Katie Simpson has the latest from Washington.
They are polarizing, unpopular, and the oldest U.S. presidential candidates ever. Yet they're poised to lead their respective parties into the next election. Early momentum appears to be on Donald Trump's side, with the Republican frontrunner ahead in multiple national polls.
We have to let them know that we're a freight train and we're going and we're not stopping.
Trump's advantage comes as voters worry about President Joe Biden's age.
Biden's ruining the country by being in office. He's too old to be in office.
And some are frustrated with his handling of divisive issues, including immigration.
But I don't feel like Biden has done anything to protect this country from what's coming in the border, and I don't think it's going to change.
Biden is dismissing concerns, accusing the media of unfair negative coverage.
The last 5 polls you guys don't report, I'm winning 5 in a row.
And while his supporters may not be enthusiastic, the fear of Trump is seen as his advantage.
Yes, he is old, but he's not crazy and he's not dangerous.
I think he's a danger to the country, and I don't want him anywhere near the White House again.
Their visions for America could not be more different. And while voter enthusiasm may be low, the stakes remain incredibly high.
Katie Simpson reporting from Washington. No laughing matter. Just for laughs, one of the jewels in Canada's entertainment crown is going bust. The fallout after this.
It started with the street right next to us. And
Tanya Carroll will never forget the 2017 flood.
We were woken up in the middle of the night by the firefighters, and we were rushed out.
Carroll lives in what's known as a 20-year floodplain, which means there's a 5% risk of flooding any given year. That's now considered too risky for Desjardins, a major financial institution based in Quebec. It will no longer offer new mortgages for properties on 20-year floodplains across the province. Residents like Carroll worry what the change will mean for the value of their homes.
If I do decide in the future to sell my house, what's going to be the chances that I'll be able to get what it's worth at that time? Will it be worth? Is that going to then, downgrade the cost of, the selling price?
Desjardins said in a statement the impacts of climate change, including water damage, are growing in importance and causing substantial damage. The company points out less than 5% of its mortgaged properties are in high-risk flood zones, but says homes in these areas are generally uninsurable, and it needs to account for the risks.
People might not be able to pay their mortgages if a major flood event occurs.
Several insurance companies have made similar moves, with more than 1 million Canadian homes deemed uninsurable for flood risk. If mortgage providers are next and others follow Desjardins' lead, there could be a huge impact, says this expert.
So you're going to have eroding and cascading effects throughout the residential housing market within given regions across Canada in these high-risk areas.
In the Montreal borough of Pierrefonds-Roxborough alone, the mayor says there are thousands of households in flood zones.
Will the other banking institutions follow suit? Which creates a major issue, because if you don't have cash at that point to buy a home, folks that have these homes will be stuck with them. The property value goes down.
Experts say it's another reminder that Canada needs to do more to adapt to avoid risks caused by climate change. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
A student pilot is sharing a striking image he recorded of a jet here in BC getting struck by lightning. Take a look. Ethan West says he was watching planes, a hobby of his, out at Wildfires on Sunday when he captured this footage of a lightning strike hitting an Air Canada plane straight through the middle.
It was amazing because we ended up seeing 2 lightning strikes, and that happened to be the first one. And from what I know, there was no lightning predicted on the weather forecast, so it was kind of just out of the blue. I wasn't even thinking about it at the time. I was just thinking about getting a cool video of the 777 departing.
He sure did that. Air Canada says its planes are built to withstand lightning strikes, and all aircraft are taken out of service to be checked by aircraft engineers after, wait for it, they're hit. Woo! Might interrupt the in-flight bar cart service, wouldn't it, Darius?
A little bit, yeah. Yes, there was quite an unexpected storm that came that night. We were expecting some thunderstorms late last week and possibly into the weekend, but conditions were becoming less favorable for lightning when that strike happened. So definitely a very lucky catch, and I was very happy that he caught it because it was very interesting to see.
Yeah, amazing skills. Well done, Ethan.
Right? Yeah. Now, not here in BC, but over the country country in Ontario. There was some storms passing through today, largely driven by the fact that it's been extremely warm over there. You can see, although we've been experiencing very cold temperatures here in BC, much colder than normal, they've been 20, even higher degrees warmer than normal over in Ontario, with places like Hamilton and Toronto seeing temperatures 20 degrees, breaking 20 degrees, which is actually record-breaking for some places, like in Hamilton. That was this is the earliest that the city has ever hit 20 degrees Celsius. So that happened yesterday. Dozens of weather records broken, and again today, temperatures coming down a little bit, but still extremely warm. Now, if we look ahead, we're going to see those temperatures start to come down, but still record-breaking forecast or observations there. Now, even though those temperatures are coming down here in BC, our temperatures are coming up. We've been quite chilly for a while now, but slowly over the next few days, those temperatures start to rise, and we'll see that Arctic ridge of high pressure that's been bringing those cold temperatures down into the province start to retreat, and we see that blue go away to make for some nice green and temperatures coming back up towards seasonal. Although on Friday, as we get that warmer weather, it comes with a bit of a trade-off in terms of this low moving in, pushing in quite a bit of rain and precipitation into parts of the province. Freezing levels will still be sitting low enough that it should still mean snow for most mountains, including the local ones here in Vancouver. We can watch this system roll in, start to hit the northwest and the north coast by tomorrow morning, and then continue to roll down into other parts of the province, including the North Island, and then continue to move down, affecting even us here in Vancouver and the rest of the island by Friday early morning, and then continue pretty much some fairly constant precipitation for the next few days. Now, in terms of conditions across the province tomorrow, still very calm with the exception of the north coast. Lots of sun, but some more clouds starting to build in on the coast. If we zoom in here in Vancouver, you can see that we get pretty calm conditions until that wave of precipitation comes, bringing some snow to the mountains, and that should continue through the weekend. And here for a 5-day forecast, some cloud the next couple of days, but for the most part, the rain comes this weekend, but some warmth as well.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
It has been one of the biggest festivals in Canada, bringing comedians from around the world to Montreal. But Just for Laughs is not happening this year. The company that owns the festival is filing for protection from its creditors. Jade Turnbull now on the reaction and what happens next.
It's really, really unfortunate. I think Montreal really has, Just for Laughs has really put Montreal on the map for stand-up comedy, and now that's gone.
Montrealer Abby Stonehouse has been a fan of the festival for years. In fact, watching the comedians on stage prompted her to launch her own comedy career and to eventually perform in the festival.
It's a big deal for comedians all around the world. It's the biggest comedy festival in the world. So I was in Austin last year and I mentioned that I was auditioning for Just for Laughs. They're like, oh my gosh, you got an audition? Like it's everywhere. Everyone wants to come to Montreal.
It's a sad day for a festival that gave so many Montrealers, Quebecers, and people from around the world so many laughs. The company that runs the festival says the last few years have been challenging. The pandemic forced the cancellation of the festival for a couple of years, but organizers still had to pay the bills. Now, 75 workers have been let go, in addition to 21 others back in December, and Groupe Juste pour Rire is seeking creditor protection.
Soccer players, no.
Montreal comedian Joey Elias has worked at 17 festivals and credits it for making him a better comic.
If you made Just for Laughs, you were all right. You know, that was somehow the sign that your career was on the right track.
Elias hopes this is just a blip and that the festival will be back in some form next year.
It was a major piece of Montreal summer. You know, you had the Grand Prix that kicked it off, and then you had jazz and then comedy. So what are we going to do now? It's a void.
Groupe Juste pour Rire is looking for investors and even a buyer and hopes to be back by 2025. Jay Turnbull, CBC News, Montreal.
It's pretty rare to have a baby on a leap day. Twins, even more rare. But what are the chances of having quadruplets? We speak with the father of 4 new babies on a lucky and exciting day. Stick around.
Hey, my name's Glenn Lewis. Come on in to check out my jungle lot.
almost hits you like a wall of green, and that's kind of what the feeling that I want people to have. People who book my space by the hour for photography. Instead of having like a black curtain behind you, it's now this living space that's your backdrop. So this is kind of like my seating area. It's really great spot for photography. Love this idea of like sitting into this chair and then having all of these leaves surround you to your left and to your right and then come from above too. This is like my one thing I really enjoy doing is just like staging all the plants. If I move this one like over here. I often find cities overstimulating, and just the noise and the sound and traffic and people and all of that energy. So I started dreaming up this vision of living immersed in nature. Coming back to this refuge is really important for me. Kind of got a nice view from up top because you can get this whole sense of all the different plants in there, if it's a monstera, if it's the palms. I want this to be a canvas for me, my space to be a canvas for me, to express myself and to be artistic and creative in my own way. I own a company. What we do is we save buildings that would have otherwise been demolished by physically picking them up, relocating them, and repurposing them. We tear down about 3,000 homes every year across Metro Vancouver. I generally support the push towards densification, but the process to achieve that density is unbelievably wasteful because we're tearing down millions and millions of tons of raw materials and all of the embodied carbon, which is basically the greenhouse gas emissions that are in those buildings already. And so instead of throwing all of that, those homes away and those buildings away, let's save the good ones and let's move and repurpose them. Nature has no concept of waste. Nature is inherently designed as loops. Everything that's used has a purpose. Even so-called byproducts or end products have a circular repurpose. Ultimately comes down to having a relationship. Every morning that I water these plants, it's a living thing that's here with me. And so I think that's the relationship that I respect and honor in the work that I do, and it's a relationship that I honor and respect here in my living space.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Calling all entrepreneurs, Dragon's Den auditions are back. On March 6th, attend a special entrepreneurial workshop at the Okanagan Regional Library, Kelowna branch. The open auditions are on March 7th at the Kelowna Innovation Centre, and Vancouver auditions are on March 9th and 10th at the CBC Broadcast Centre. For more information and to register, visit cbc.ca/dragonsden.
A couple in Saskatchewan marked the leap year in spectacular fashion. They welcomed 4 new babies into their family on February 29th.
The quadruplets will join 5 older siblings. Their father is happy, but needless to say, overwhelmed. He shared his thoughts with us.
Once in a lifetime thing, you know what I mean? Like trying to visit one kid, but then you got to jump to another one, and you're not like, you know what I mean? Just trying to put your attention equally amongst the 4.
You had quadruplets on leap year.
Oh, it's crazy. I can't even express how crazy it feels to have like that many kids. I already have a couple as it is, and then for them to be, you know what I mean, 4 more. Altogether this year, these are 9. She has 2 prior, I have 2 prior, and then we have a son together, and then these 4, so.
Was Savannah here in Saskatoon, or?
Yeah, she was here. She has to stay close to the hospital because there's obviously quadruplets, right? So she had to stay close to the hospital, and she called me, I need you home right now, and I just started freaking out, didn't know what to do, so.
I know they were a bit premature.
Yeah, this was the 29th. I drove 9.5 hours from work, made it here, there's a snowstorm.
And you made it on time?
No, unfortunately I missed it.
How are the kids?
They're good. They're hooked up to breathing tubes still, but everything is going good. One had to get a blood transfusion because their wasn't doing too good, I guess, or whatever. And then 2 of them had jaundice, but then, yeah, they're doing good.
Can you tell me their names?
Yeah, sure. Baby A is Aaliyah. Baby B is Beautiful. Baby C is Cecilia. And baby D is Dominic. They're all Marastes.
Wow. And how's Savannah doing?
She's doing really well. She's up and walking around and high spirits. So, we'll be staying in the hospital. They'll be here till May or something like that. So we'll be around for a while. You won't be able to do it by yourself, so I'll have to help 100%.
Just did the math. The odds of Fleet Day quadruplets? Less than 1 in a billion. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And your next local news is at 11 o'clock, right after the National. We'll see you then.